Gaius Julius Caesar was a famous Roman general and politician who you've probably heard of before. Let's check out some of the many TV and movies that tell his story. Because there are so many options, this list does not include anything from before the 1960s or anything where Caesar is not a main character or main focus of the movie or show. However, there are some additional honorable mentions at the end. In order of release, the first version we're looking at is Julius Caesar Against the Pirates. This is an Italian film that came out in 1962 and is loosely based on actual events from the early life of Julius Caesar. Script. This is very confusing. It seems to be a trend in 60s movies to give little to no context at the beginning, which makes it very difficult to understand what is going on. From what I gather, Caesar flees Rome, is inevitably captured by pirates, then different pirates, then he swears his revenge on them, etc. Sounds really exciting, right? I wish I could say it was, but instead I was trying to figure out who was who and why they were there, and then laugh anytime someone walked across a room and it made this weird squelching noise. I apologize to those of you who genuinely love this movie. This may be a me problem. Acting. Nothing good to say here either, unfortunately. All of the acting was very generic. I feel guilty that I had a hard time even just keeping the characters straight. Sex and nudity, violence and gore. No sex or nudity, but there are a lot of men awkwardly accosting women with grabby hands. No gore, but lots of fighting. All the sword scenes were really slow, like in slow motion. You could practically see in their faces, okay, the sword goes here, then here. Oh, I have to jump back here. It's 93 minutes long, not rated, but I'd say 13 plus. Next up, Caesar the Conqueror. This is also an Italian film that was released in 1962, based on the events of Caesar going up against the Gauls, led by Vercingetorix. I am not going to tell you how many times I had to practice saying that name. Script. This was an easy and straightforward script to follow, but also lands squarely in the so bad at times it's funny category. Caesar is trying to capture Gaul even though the Senate is super ready for him to stop getting all their soldiers killed. Vercingetorix is gonna play at being all tough, killing Romans and whoever else he feels like, until he gets bored and doesn't feel like it anymore. Also, Caesar has a ward, Publia, who is being used as a pawn by multiple people, but don't worry, she is very good at bribery. Overall, it kept my attention except for the long, drawn-out fight at the end. Acting. The movie was originally in Italian, but I watched the dub version in English. Surprisingly good dub compared to others I've seen. I can't say there was any particular actor that stood out to me, but it was a little off-putting that Caesar refers to himself in the third person the whole movie. Also, I take issue with some of these costumes. They look like they came right out of a Halloween store, but I'm not an expert, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Sex and nudity, violence and gore. No sex or nudity. Some large field fighting scenes, but nothing gory. There is one torture scene that was a bit more graphic than I'm used to for the 60s, but still not much by today's standards. 97 minutes, not rated, but I'd give it around 13 plus. Next up, we are talking about the Shakespeare version of Julius Caesar. There have been a lot of adaptations of this play, but the one I had access to was the BBC 1979 version. Script. Even though the play is called Julius Caesar, it's actually more about Brutus. Through the first half, we follow his emotional crisis as he tries to decide if he's going to betray Caesar. Then the second half is the fallout of his decision. Mostly internal monologues describing the character's thought processes. There were some great one-off lines, but honestly, compared to all of the other Shakespeare plays I've seen, this one was probably the least engaging. Maybe I would have enjoyed one of the other performances more. Acting. Even though I was not super engaged with the story, I still thought the acting was good. I could easily follow the lines and understand what each actor was conveying. I think my favorite performance was Cassius by David Collings and Keith Mitchell as Mark Antony. Sex and nudity, violence and gore. No sex or nudity. There is a lot of blood shown in certain parts, but never any actual graphic violence. 160 minutes, rated 16 plus, but that seems a bit high in my opinion. Moving along, next up, Julius Caesar. This is a 2003 miniseries about the life of Julius Caesar. Script. The series begins when Caesar is 18 years old and ends with his death, so it has a lot to cover. It includes everything from the last 3 shows and all of it from Caesar's point of view. Because it covers so much in a short amount of time, it moves very quickly. That's not to say it's bad. It kept me interested the entire time, but sometimes the cuts were rather abrupt and suddenly the next scene is years later. The focus is on the major events and Caesar's relationships, and I felt this deserved more time. Some really good quotes as well. There are some dramatic, soapy elements, but the emphasis is on getting the basic story of his life told. Acting. Caesar is played by Jeremy Sisto, who was fantastic. He's definitely on my radar now. The way he aged with his character and the tone was reminiscent of Keith Mitchell's Henry VIII. This had an all-around amazing cast. We even have some big names here like Richard Harris and Christopher Walken. Sex and nudity, violence and gore. No sex or nudity, but we do get to spend a little bit of time with each of Caesar's romantic interests. Sorry to those of you who are looking for epic battles. This tries, but they go by super fast and you can barely see what's happening most of the time. It's 178 minutes long, rated 13 plus. Last on this main list is Roman Empire Julius Caesar, Master of Rome. This is a Netflix docudrama that came out in 2016. One season focuses on the entire life of Julius Caesar. Script. It begins when Caesar is 19 years old and covers all the major events of his life, with an emphasis on his relationships and major battles. I appreciated that this is the only option that goes in depth about the pre-war power struggle between Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus. Acting. Ditch Davy wins the award for our scruffiest Caesar. He's not bad at all, but this is a different Caesar than all the other versions. He's less pompous or aristocratic and more disgruntled but ambitious soldier. By far, most outwardly power-hungry. Sex and nudity, violence and gore. All of the above. Certainly not anywhere near the most explicit or gory thing I've ever seen, but still enough to keep the kids out of the room. I only had to cover my eyes once, but this still firmly falls in the adult-only category. There are 5 45-minute episodes, rated 18 plus for language, nudity, sex, and violence. Final opinion. Julius Caesar against the pirates. I would say skip. But hey, if you disagree with me, please comment and let people know why you think they might be interested. Caesar the Conqueror. This may be your choice if you really only prefer older movies and like to laugh at plots and costumes that make no sense. Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. I mean, obviously, if you're a huge fan of Shakespeare, then this is your choice. Otherwise, I would go with one of the others. Julius Caesar. This would be my top recommendation for you if you want to see all of Caesar's life in a shorter amount of time with good acting but not too much violence. Roman Empire, Julius Caesar, Master of Rome. This is your pick if you want the most violent and sexual version that covers his entire life, and don't mind your media being interrupted by historians giving their commentary. Now it's time for some honorable mentions. Cleopatra from 1963 is about Cleopatra, but Caesar is a fairly large supporting role covering the end of his life. In my opinion, one of the best performances of Caesar by Rex Harrison. Also, just a gorgeous movie. This will absolutely be included if I do an Ancient Egypt marathon. Ancient Rome, The Rise and Fall of an Empire, Episode 1. A BBC docudrama from 2006. This is a narrated, well-done dramatization about Julius Caesar, but only focuses on a very small part of his life, in particular his battles with Pompey. Rome. This is a soapy television drama about 2 soldiers in Caesar's army. It tells the story through their eyes of Caesar coming back from Gaul until his death. This might actually be your choice if you're looking for the most soapy option that includes Caesar. But the largest Roman role actually goes to Caesar's nephew, Octavius, who I'll be talking about in my next comparison video. Xena, Warrior Princess. You heard right. Julius Caesar is a recurring character throughout most seasons. It covers practically all the big events of Caesar's life with a fun Xena-esque twist. Caesar is played by Karl Urban, who will forever be my first Caesar. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Please check out my playlists for more movie and TV comparisons and how to watch historical media in chronological order. Happy watching!